Zera Shimshon. Okay, Zera Shimshon on Parshas Chayei 5784. This entry is the third entry that he has on Chayei, third shtickle, and it's being dedicated Nishmas Daniel ben David, whose Yahrtzeit is on Kof Ches Cheshvan. The show is having Aliyah, and it's a very apropos piece for a Yahrtzeit or for a Ptira, and it should not just be an Liluy Neshama for Daniel ben David, but Liluy Neshama for all the Kedoshim whose Shloshim just passed, the Kedoshim from the Simchas Torah massacre in Eretz Yisrael. Hashem Yerachim there, and Shon Shev Aliyah. This is Mamish, their Shloshim also. So very apropos shtickle, because, in this week's Parsha is the first proper chronicled Levaya and Hesped in our history. First chronicled Levaya and Hesped in Jewish history, in biblical history. Anyways, so without further ado, the pasuk of Avram spoke the story of Kosas. The pasuk says that Avram Avinu came to eulogize Sarah and to cry for her. The tchila, right. So he says Vikasha, is unwritten, but it clearly means, he means to ask, right? There's an obvious question here. Tchila bochav zol vasof maspido the gimel lebechi v'zayin lehesped, right. Right, it's out of order. You know from human experience, you first cry like crazy, and then you gain your composure and you give the hesped. But not only that, also it's a Meforsha Gemara, Gimel Lebechi Zayin Hesped, that the first 3 days of a shiva, Lo Aleinu is mainly crying. But of course the whole 7 days are dedicated for eulogy. So eulogy, comes after you initially cry, and also in Mitzad the Gedorim of the Shiva, the first 3 days are mainly for crying, but all says so. The eulogy, the Hespedim, continue past the first 3 days, right? So in short, it should have said Livkos Esara Vilis Lahaspida, the other way around, to cry for her and to eulogize her, but it said no, eulogize her and to cry for her. So that's his first kasha. Va'id lama yesh chav zir demilas ukos. Now we know anyone who sees the Torah scroll, the way it's written in the Sefer Torah. For some reason, I myself never really looked into it deeply, and now hopefully we'll learn together a good reason why. Livkosa, the chaf of Livkosa is small. It's written smaller than the rest of the letters. So he said, why is that? Right? Viuvan, b'mashikosav baal sefer mavro yabok. Right? So now this could be understood based on the sefer mavro yabok. Mavro yabok was a sefer written by Aaron from Modena. He was a big makobel, very big makobel. I believe he's a Talmud of Yisrael Saruk, or a Talmud of the Ramat. Pan was a Talmud of Yisrael Saruk. So he lived a couple of generations before him. Also Italian, like the Zera Shimshon was Italian. Now, what's very interesting about that book is that it's all about death and dying, and things that have to be done for the mace after death. That's the theme of the whole book. It's a book, about from the time you initially get sick, and also, in preparing to die, what things you should do even before you have your final illness, death. The whole book is about dying. But it's a lot of philosophy, a lot of Kabbalah, and a lot of Musar. So he's quoting from the Sefer Mavro Yabok. Like I said, he was an Italian Rav, and Zera Shimshon was also Italian, lived a few years before him, and they moved in, even though, Zera Shimshon lived a couple of generations later, or so, moved in the same circles, the Italian Kabbalistically oriented circles, Zera Shimshon was a few generations later. But okay, so he's calling for Sefer Mavro Yabok. Zel Shon on this way says, because like I said, this book is dedicated to explaining everything about death and dying, and anything related to it. Vespel Macy tells us to give a eulogy, says the Mavriya book, for the dead guy. I don't know if that's the nicest term to use, right? For the deceased, right? The hesped for the deceased, he tells us it is of great benefit. It's not just, it's not, just for either the ovel to get it off his chest or vanity of the deceased that he wants people to say nice things about him after he's gone. No. It's when done right, al pi halacha, there's halachas how to do it, and now it's supposed to be done correct. It's toas gadol. Because if the hesped makes people cry, right? And their crying is like he expects you to know from what's written elsewhere in Chazal that it's considered to be a merit, right? To shed a tear over any good Jew that dies. It doesn't have to be a big tzaddik or big talmid. Any good Jew, any Adam kosher. It's a big tikkun, to cry over an Adam kosher. Right, but so those tears are a positive thing, to cry over a good Jew, a good Jew that died, right? And they stimulate the Sharei Dima and Shemaim. There's also something, there are gates in heaven. There's also called the Gate of Tears, right? And there's a gate of tears that's alluded to that we say Sharei Dim alone in Alu. It's a Chazal that because of Chorban Abayis, Rachmano Litzlan, as we see all the tsaros we've been going through throughout the Golus, and most recently what's going on now in Eretz Yisrael, this should all be a schus. Besides the fact that should all be lean neshama for first and foremost Daniel ben David, whose Yahrzeit is coming up, and for whose son sponsored this session, but of course we Aliyas Neshama for all the Kedoshim of the Simchas Torah War. But there's but it should also be a schus for us to get out, and we see we daven hard, and we don't always get exactly what we daven for, or sometimes are to, because a lot of gates heaven are locked because of Chorban Abayis. But Sharei Dim alone in Alu. And the prayers that are done with real tears are always answered, right? And now you might ask, why are Sharei Dima not locked? Because these, what locks the gates in heaven? The Midas Hadin. It's undeserved. This gate is closed because you don't deserve for it to be open. If the Sharei Dima are not locked, that means that the Midas Hadin has no control over it. So that's what he says. Right? So because you shed tears for the deceased, that opens for the deceased, whose neshama is going up to heaven, the Sharei Demos, right? And that's the best gate to go through because there's no dinim there. That's why they were never, sealed, right, with Chorban Abayis. But says the Mavriya book, which he's quoting from, right? That it's like we said, the crying has to be sincere. It's not like he says not litzar chachomer. Some people just get a buzz from crying. They need drama. God forbid. He calls it for not for the good of the flesh, right? Some people need the drama, or some people, they're just dumb. They're really crying for themselves because they missed the guy or his tears, let's say he was their supporter, he was their benefactor. Yes, they're really crying either for themselves or they're crying for the drama. It has to be l'toilas hanefesh, for the good of the soul. You're crying for him, and you're crying also for the good of your soul. It is a good thing. It is a virtue, as we said, to cry for any kosher Jew that dies. So if the tears are coming from the right place, that's really over the nefesh of the niftar. It's also for me to be a virtuous person that I cry over a kosher Jew. So those tears, open up in front of the neshama of the mace, the Sharei Demos, right? And it's the best gates to get through because no dinim there. Okay. So now this is not a Zera Shimshon talking, no, Zera Shimshon now is picking up from this Mavriya book and saying that, to allude to the fact that Avram Avinu indeed was crying, not because, he misses his wife, which means you're crying for yourself, right? God forbid. I mean, not to make light of it, right? But, to show that Avram Avinu was just crying for the right reasons, not because he misses his wife that, he went through so much with, and, and then not as a catharsis, is that the right word, going through some type of, healing experience. No, he was just crying for the real reasons, right? That's all he was crying, for the good of the soul and not for the any type of material, which includes biochemical, emotional needs. So that's why the chaf is small. Lomar, to say, Shemir b'bchiyoso, right, that he actually cried very little. So little chaf of the kosa means he didn't cry a lot, he cried a little. Because he cried a little, not because he didn't care. He cried a little because he refused to cry any insincere cries. He refused to cry for biochemical reasons. He refused to cry for psychological reasons. So he only wanted whatever cries that he cried should be 100% genuine. Hesped doesn't have. He only cried just for the sake of the Hesped, which is for the good of the nefesh. Therefore, that his crying was for the Hesped. So he put the Hesped first. So even though it's not necessarily explaining the chronology, but it's explaining the order of importance and priorities. Because the Hesped that we say is for Tikkun HaNefesh, that people should cry for him, and the Hesped is should be to make people cry, and to make people cry for the right reasons. Look at what a guy he was. Look at a kosher Jew he was. On the one, you're not supposed to exaggerate, but I've been by a Spadim where they say jokes and nonsense, and really it's just like the Hesped should be focused. There's an Adam kosher, and we're missing him. So the Hesped should be which if done right, without exaggerations, is done for the right reasons. There's an Adam kosher that's ro'ui to cry for. So then the crying followed the Hesped. So even though there may have been some crying before, but it was Hesped, or all Avram Avinu's crying was Hesped oriented. The tikkun of the Hesped, to bring out the right tears, right? That's what guided him in his crying. That's what guided him in his crying. Okay, that's what he says. That's his first teretz. Another thing that we could say, is a mikra bar minan in of zogos dima. Vein shum shekav l'sara for bechi sheba machmas even ein tzarich la'askiro the b'chlam asayim moneh. So he wants to go on a totally different derech. He says, you know what? Which he hasn't gone to the punchline, but he's setting it up. The bechi over here is something totally different. Totally different. We're not talking about the bechi, the crying that happens instantly upon hearing the bad news, which is not even worthy of mentioning in the Torah, right? That talks about things of absolute value. Because, what comes, initially, immediately, that's natural. Right? You're upset, you're distressed, you cry, right? And not only that, it's not even talking about, like I said in my first teretz, the bechi that comes with the Hesped, that it was Hesped-oriented bechi. It's not even talking about that, because that's already implicit and included in Hesped. Over here where he says he's crying for Sarah, it's actually teaching us a big chiddush. Even after all the days of Hesped fast, we quoted the Gemara in Moed Katan, right? That Shiva Yemei Hesped, right? And even after all that, and even after the memorial gathering that is customary to have by Shloshim, even after all that, Every time he remembered Sarah's deeds and how she was really very strong, and how she ran the household in a Jewish way and in her fear of Hashem. Ein of Zogos Dima used to cry. His eyes. So Livkosa means perpetually. It's not talking about the natural crying upon hearing the bad news and seeing the corpse. It's not talking about even the Bechi that's part of the Hesped or a result of Hesped, because that's included in Hesped. But even afterwards, way afterwards, he would cry whenever he would remember her good deeds, right, and her Yiras Shamayim. Vati Shapishivsik B'milas L'Sara Ben L'Spodra. Right, so now it comes up very good. Like my second shot, we answer another interesting observation. It's not a kasha, but it's an interesting observation on the style of pasuk. It says, "Lispod l'sara v'livkosa," to eulogize Sarah and to cry for her. You put Sarah, her name, in between the hesped and the bechi, in between the eulogizing and the crying. You put the word Sarah. You could have written the pasuk structured differently, that her name either comes right before the two, Hesped and Bechi, or comes right after, right? You could have structured the pasuk differently. So she has started. It said, Lispod l'Sara v'livkosa. The word Sarah is right in between Hesped and Bechi. And like the way I'm learning this second teretz, it comes out very good. Right, because you should have really said Lispod l'Ivkosa Sarah. Put to eulogize and cry Sarah. Right? Why'd you say eulogize Sarah and to cry for her? You put the name Sarah in between the hesped and the bechi. So I'll tell you, it's talking about the Lispod Sarah was already done. Right? It's long after the times of hesped. The chiyuv of his obligation to be maspid have ended. And to crying for her was something totally different. Very apropos for a vort that's being sponsored for a Yahrtzeit. So, of course, Yahrtzeit, no more Hespedim. The chiyuv of Hespedim is over already after the first 7 days. Certainly after the Shloshim, we don't go there anymore. But it's still, if a person was really an Odom Kasher, like us, you just cry every time you remember how good they were. All right, so that's his second teretz. Okay, Vod Yesh Lomar. And nothing that we could say. Well, Loimar, Vayavo Sarah Avram Lispodov Liv Kosa. So that's not that. I'll tell you another thing. But before I tell you the next thing, I'm going to add another kasha. Right? You don't have to mention Sarah's name in this pasuk at all. Right? Because of the pasuk before. It says Vatama Sar Bakir Sarba Hi Chevron. She died Kirzah, which is Chevron, right? It always says it exactly in the in the Mamish in the word for. So we have to say, you could just say Avram Lispoda V'Livkosa. Avram came to eulogize her and to cry for her. The name Sarah doesn't have to be mentioned at all again, because we know it's talking about Sarah, because just a few words earlier it says the context is that Sarah died in Kiryas Arba. So you could just say, and Avram came to cry for her and to eulogize her and cry for her, right? Mishum the Kaimans, because we paskin Ola imo veino yoredes, right? A woman goes up with him but does not go down with him. Meaning to say, so let's see, goes up with her husband and does not go down with him. Right, so he goes on to explain what he wants from that Gemara. A woman could be eulogized also based on the merits of her husband. That's when he goes up with him. Let's say he was like something really special. She, was his wife, but as an individual, she was not wholly remarkable. Right, but still, you could praise the woman as being the Eishes Chaver, the wife of the Tamachov. She goes up with him, that his merit pertains to, because she's his companion, his helpmate. She's his Ezer Kenegdo. So you could praise a woman, by the deeds of her husband. Right, you could eulogize her. Her husband's, and she was the helpmate of this Tamachov. She's a helpmate that you really attribute to her all the great things her husband did. Lefikach Amar Kosav Lispo Lisar Dafka. So like you might think, Avram's going to eulogize her in context, well, and I did big things, and she was by my side when I was, fighting the four kings, and when I had to put up with this and she was there by my side. No. Avram Avinu did not resort to eulogizing her as the helpmate of his merit, which is legit, but he did not, he didn't know that she was my helpmate with all I went through, which is a legitimate thing to say, and he didn't do that. Right? Feel about Lispo Lisara. And so that's why her name is, he doubles down her name, Lispo Lisara, to eulogize Sarah. Her own merit. She had plenty of her own merit. Lispo Lisara Dafka. I did not come to eulogize her, just she was my wife and she was at my side in all the great things that I did and all the trials and travails. He didn't eulogize her that way, but Lispo Lisara, her in her own merit. Right? It's it's, but rather she was praising him, her, what a great woman she was. Even if she wouldn't have been his wife, what a great woman she was, by virtue of herself. It's kind of like in the spirit of what Chazal say in last week's parsha, in the spirit of, in the gist of, when Sarah says to, kick Yishmael, kick the Arab bum out of the house, out of Eretz Yisrael, out of Nachlas Yisrael, Ken Yi Rotzam Bimhera B'Yameinu, kick his descendants out also. Garasham Azaz Vespana. So what's it? Kiloyash Amazal Im Benizal, that that this son of this maidservant should not inherit together with my son with Yitzchak. So just say with my son, or just say with Yitzchak. Double option. Right. So I was just saying, two reasons, right? Chazal say 2 reasons, of why, of why Yitzchak is in a league onto his own. First of all, he's Beni. He's the son of a tzaddik, Sarah. And if he wasn't my son, he's Yitzchak. He's a big tzaddik. So just 2. So I says, let's suppose the Sarah, that even though Sarah, could have been, could have gotten, plenty of hesped on the merit of being Avram's wife, but also in addition to that, so in fact she's Eshes Avram, but also Sarah. She's Eshes Avram and Sarah, like he's Beni and he's Yitzchak, so also she's Eshes Sarah, and she is Sarah in her own right. Right. Who's anyone Ramam or Rabbo say no? So this is going to say in Gemara and Shabbos. I don't know ben Pazim Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Mishum Bar Kapara. Shimon ben Paz said the name of Shua ben Levi, said the name of Bar Kapara. Komrad Basaram Kosher, Kosher suffer from Nichon based on anyone who sheds tears on a Adam Kosher, on a good Jew. HaKadosh Baruch Hu counts those tears and puts them in his storage house. Shenemar, as it says, Nodi Safarta Ata Sima Dimasi Benodcha. Right, it's a pasuk. Right, you counted, my jug. Right, put my tears in your jugs. The kosher echor means a pasuk or ras devosaram kosher. So now the obvious question is: this pasuk may allude to that there are jugs, and there are jugs. Put my tears in those jugs that you have in heaven. Good. So the pasuk alludes to the fact that God, counts the Jewish tears and saves them, but doesn't say that it's tears shed for an Adam kosher, or for a kosher Jew. It's like Ikar Chaser Min HaSefer. Yeah, so we have a pasuk that proves that God counts the tears and stores them, right? But where's the context that it's the tears shed for an Adam kosher? So now I could say a Pashat, so he wants to go back to that, that question, just to answer that question per se, where is Adam kosher? Right. In the pasuk, well, we could say that maybe we get the context from how those psukim in Tehillim continue, because that capital Tehillim goes, you saved my life from death. Hello, Ragli Dechi, my feet from going down to a bad place. To walk before God in the light of life, in the Orachai. Now, walking with God in the light of life sounds like the guy's dead already, and he's in heaven. He's with the divine light. So if that's the case, so what does it say just a few words before? You saved my soul from death. Sounds like he's dead already. Excuse me. Sounds like he's dead already. All right. So we're going to have to say, in order to reconcile, what's being said over here, is that it's talking about the death of tzaddikim, right? That atones for the generation, right? So a tzaddik dies. Because one tzaddik dies, millions of people don't have to die. Something which we should have been paying attention to during COVID and in the years following. We lost a lot of Gedolim, really. And we should have known that it means that hard times were decreed and hard times are coming. And it's sad that we lost these Gedolim, but they were undoubtedly a kapara that because they went, millions of Jews didn't have to go. Won't have to go. We hope. Hashem Yazor. So it's talking about tzaddikim, because the guy is like walking in the light of heaven, the light of life in front of God, right? So it's talking about the death of a tzaddik that's mechaper on his generation. Vulnerable midrash, and it says in the midrash, when God forbid the generation is not doing good, spiritually, he sees amongst them one tzaddik and takes the tzaddik away from them, and that protects the whole generation. Therefore, when Chashon, when we're chayav misa, what are you doing to save us? You save us. Your hitzalta nafshi mimaves, the guy who's still alive on earth because the tzaddik was his kapara is saying those words. Why? Right? Because someone else is you took a tzaddik to walk before you in heaven in the light of life. Right? You take one tzaddik to walk before you in the light of life. And that's what the guy says. You saved my life, my life, mine amongst everyone else in the generation. From death. And now that did we get saved from death itself? And also we also got saved from Xeros Koshos. Once a Koshos takes a tzaddik, it's not just to save us from death, but a Koshos takes the tzaddik, and once he takes tzaddik, it also is machaper and gets us out of a lot of the Xeros Ros. That's Raglai Midechi. So David Malch speaking B'Loshen Yochid for his whole, but he means his whole generation. We were saved, Nafshi Mos, Ragli Midechi, because someone else was Lis Halech Neokim Barachai. Right? Right. So basically figure out from the pasuk, for the Jewish pasuk, a tzaddik must have died. A tzaddik must have died, and that's what gives context to what's written earlier in the pasuk. So what's written earlier is so the kapittul is the survivors, the generation that are still alive that lost their tzaddik, so they're crying because this guy who was taken, who's now in the light of life in heaven, saved us from death and saved us from Xeros Koshos. Right? That's the context. That's how we know that the earlier pasuk at the beginning of the kapittul is talking about crying over the tzaddik that died. Vod yesh lomar, but I'll give you another approach. How they knew that this pasuk talking about that God counts the tears is that the context, is when does he count the tears? He counts the tears. They're shed for it. Adam kosher. How did we know Adam kosher? I'll give you another teretz that kosher. So it says, Nodi safarta, my jug you counted. It's written without a vav. it's written Nadi. Just we know that, with the Masoret, that's Nodi, right? So it's written Nadi, which is Oisius Din. Nadi is the same as Nun Daled Yud, which inverted is Din, right? Din, right? Judgment. Venora Shem Adnus, Moral Din, and we know Shem Adon, which also has the letters Din in it, just with the letter Aleph at the beginning, has the same letters Daled, Nun, Yud, just has an Aleph at the beginning, so it's Aleph Din, right? Moral Din, that name is also a name of Din. Sheken Gimel Zachraz, Haim Oisius Din, that's the last three letters of Adnos is Din. Voice Aleph B'chinas Rachim, Shoshatzim Din, and the Aleph represents Hashem, adds Rachamim to the Din. Right? Shaboy Moral, that's why Adnos is not, it's Din, but it's not Din like Elokim, which is Din Akasha. It's, Adnos is Din Arafi, I do believe. Right? Because the Aleph represents the Rachamim that's added to the Din. Shaboy Umor al Shem Ekye Shu Rachim, because after Aleph is alludes to Shem Ekye, which is the Shem of Keser, which is Rachamim Gdolim. So the Aleph of Ekye is added to Din and makes the Shem Adnos. So letters of Din is Din, of course, and Aleph added to them. Adnos is the to add Rachamim to Din. But in Atzam Yesha Yud Shi Rachamim Kashatia Bemtza Oisius Din Shares Muvla Benem Melkochlifa Rachim Kol Kongranzi Shaloya Roges Gomor. Now, even in the word Din, here's an interesting point. So the letter Yud that's in Din. Now the letter Yud also it connotes Rachamim. And what he has in mind that he expects you to know is that the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Yud of Yud Kei Vav Kei, is Keser Chochma, right? They lose top two midas, which there's no dinim there. So of course Keser, the Kutso Shoyad, is Rachamim Gdolim, right? Unlimited Rachamim, which the Yud Gimel Tikune Keser, which of Yud Gimel midas Harachamim, that comes from the Keser. And then even the Yud itself is connected Chochma, and Chochma there's no dinim yet. From Hey, the Hey of the name, which is Bina, Dirin Misarin Mina, even it itself is not Din, but Din awakens over there. It starts from there. It's just a starting point for Din. So the letter Yud is Kulo Rachamim. And because you could take the letter Yud out of Din and it spells done, to judge. Right? So you get the Din just with the two letters Dalet and Nun. You already get the Din there. Right? Done, to judge. Right? So the Yud actually makes Dun into Din, makes it, even a little bit, it tempers it. So it's still Din because the Yud is not dominant, because it's not at the beginning of the word. It's at the middle, swallowed up with a letter Daled, which is Din, one of the ingredients Din, the letter Nun, which is one of the ingredients of Din, sandwiching in the Yud in the middle. So the Yud's not dominant, but it's there to sweeten it. Right? So it would be serious Din if it would be done without the letter Yud. Right? Okay. Now this is the secret of what we daven. Beroiges rachem tiskor. Right? Hashem. Even within your anger, rachem tiskor. Remember rachamim. What does it mean? Right? Barogas rachem tiskor. Right? So now, of course, I'm Liluy Yisrael. Now, of course, we daven that and we expect that even in his moments of anger, kiviyachol, so to speak, he should remember mercy. Of course, we expect that only for ourselves, right? Then when Rebbe was angry with us, he should always still remember his mercy, right? But right? But by the Goyim, it says in Parshas Lech Lecha, Gamas Goya Asher Yavodu done Anochi done. Get it done, not did done. Referring to Mitzrayim. Oh, it's going to be done, and I'm going to give them done, not din, because din has a little bit of sweetness in it with the yud in the middle. Hey, they're going to get done, man. I'm giving them done, and that's going to get them done, and that's why they're done. Get it done, right? And everybody should help, like he did it to Mitzrayim, who that's Yishmael's maternal grandparents. Hagar was a mitzvah. Everybody should also make it that be done, Hamas, and we should be done with them. Can you write it? Okay, so by going, it's done anochi, right? But didn't gomor, total din, without even the letter yud, that sweetens it a little bit. Should be done them and done with them. Oh man, I love it. I'm patenting that. Okay. Ono bishtativ kama alef yashem sholem v'adarabah hadin muvla. Right. So now listen, Adnus, right, is making an unbelievable point, right? So Aleph is mercy and Yud is mercy. So in the Shem Adnus, you have the Aleph to gain the Yud at the end and the Dun in the middle. It's kind of the reverse. Like in Din, we said, well, it's, the Yud, which is Rachamim, is surrounded and kind of obscured. So it's still in the middle, sweetening it a little bit, but it's obscured because you have the Dal and the Nun surrounding. But in the Shem Adnus, it's the other way around. So even though it's the name of Din, like I said, it's Din or Rafia, I said. And he's giving a good explanation of how it's the fact that it's Din or Rafia, it's soft Din, not the harsh Din of Elokim, right? It's the Din or Rafia, right? You can see how it's alluded to in the name because it's the other way around. It's the Aleph Rachmim on the outside, on the right. And it's the Yud, which is Rachamim on the left, and the letters Dun are in the middle, being sandwiched in by these letters of Rachamim. So you see how it's so influenced for the good by the Rachamim that surrounds it. Like we said, but now let's say, it's still a 2-on-2, because 2 letters of Rachamim, the Aleph and Yud, 2 letters of Din and Nun, Dalet and Nun, right? So Dalet and Nun, so it's a fair fight of 2-on-2. It's a 2-on-2 game. Aleph and Yud, Rachamim and Din, Dalet Nun, so it's 2-on-2, and that's why still the Din doesn't totally disappear, but it's called Dinner Rafia, soft Din. What is it? Tzaddik no Din Gomer Kol Kach Shoyin Tzaddik Liftam Ro Machi Nivra Tzaddik Kamoso, and parallel to that is also when a tzaddik dies, so of course it's our fault because we weren't zocha and we has to be nifter to protect us. But Chazal tell us, in a few places, the Rebbe Shem does not take away a tzaddik until another tzaddik is born to take his place. Right? That's a Chazal. So Rebbe Shem is, even as he's, we're losing the tzaddik by our sins, it's not total din because he's giving us a replacement tzaddik that will rise eventually to fill in the vacuum. Well, Gabi Didei Shekoa Shebachu Lefi Shloshach Luchas Shananos V'Yafashach Zol Ba Mikol Hamazeh Yal Shapir Tziruf Shel Nadi. Right, and also when you think about it, right. Right, when you think about it, it's also not so bad, for the tzaddik that died, it's not, for him personally, it's not tragic. He's going to go to, Yeshiva Shomalach, as I'll say, just smelling it from the outside is bad in all life in this world. For us, it's bad. We lost the tzaddik, but the tzaddik himself is going to a high place, going to a better place. So you understand that, there's din, but there's most definitely some presence of rachamim. We get a replacement tzaddik, and for the tzaddik himself, since especially if he's not dying by any sin of his own, just because a kapar of the door, this is written in this for him, that when a tzaddik dies for the kapar of the door, he goes to a very high place in heaven, because he's not dying because of any sin. He's going purely for the sake of just being put up on a higher level. So that's it. No D without a vav, but it's dan, the nun dalet, the letters of dan, and the yud. So it's not fully, look, hey, at the end we lost the tzaddik, right? So it's more din than rachamim. But there's still some rachamim there. So no D's, there's a little bit of rachamim there. So there's no D, there's the letters of nun dalet nun, the heavy letters of dan, right? But with the yud, sweetening it a little bit, right? So Vamar Kosov. So now with this we understand the pasuk. Nodi B'shar Shato said Din Ba'olam Lamisad Nodi So my jug, that you counted, but the jug is actually talking about, like we said, we're breaking up the word as it's a code for din with just a little bit of rachamim, right? Which is when Hakadosh was doing din in the world lahamis tzaddik, to kill a tzaddik. Safar, you count. That's a sofer dimosai. That's when you count my tears, because I'm crying for this tzaddik that you took away, which is mostly din, but still a little bit of rachamim, because it's good for the tzaddik, and another tzaddik will take his place. And I'm crying because of nodi. Nodi is like the conditions of misas tzaddikim, and I'm crying, so I'm crying for the tzaddik, right? As we will say, sima dimasi klomar now. So now, so I'll put my tears. Klomar hayud shel dimasi sima dimasi. Put my tears. It doesn't say sima dmaot, but dimasi. My tears, with the letter yud, stressing my tear. But I mean, dima, he wants to say dimas yud, he wants to read it. Right? The demos that are connected to the letter yud. Klamar yud shall dimas, take the yud of dimasi, benotcha, right? Right, in your jug, im nod, right? Benotcha is spelled with an aleph. Get it? Aleph also rachamim. Aleph is also rachamim. So benodcha, the way it's spelled in the pasuk is with an aleph, nun, right? Nun, aleph, dalid, chaf, nodcha. There's an extra aleph there, which is rachamim, right? So put the yud of my demos, right, in your nodcha, im nod, which is nun, aleph, dalid. Was Hashem adnos. So now nod, nun, aleph, dalid, and the yud of my tears, the yud of my tears, right? So then you put all those letters together, you get adnus, aleph, daled, nun, yud, right? So Yaz Yeshem adnus maleim av now would be a full name of adnus with the aleph shel rachamim. Hello besifrascha, when you count it, kamo she'omer bezor, right? As it says, or asa islay akosh dikrei sefer. So now, over there it's saying, right. So now also several what you count because we read in your book, Omer Bazaar, right? It says Aser Islay Kuchru Dikre Sefer, a place of Koshka has a place called Sefer or Safar, right? It's Sefer Visartar, there's a higher Safar, there's a lower Safar, right? So putting it, okay, so he's going to so Safar also means to store it in a special place, but he's going to now explain that a little bit more. So he says, Umasha Amar, what says, counts the tears and puts them in his treasure house. Mishum denod gemacha gnazav, notcha, right, your jug is the same gemacha as gnazav, his treasures, imakoilo. I mean, Gnazav plus one, because we add one for the word itself, is Gematria Nodcha, right? Let's just see and see if it works. That would be 76. 76 is Nodcha. 76. Gnazav is 53, and 7 is 60. 76. 76 works out. Nodcha. Yeah. Oh, 1 is 75. Gnazav is 76. So Nodcha, so you have to add the koilo to Nodcha. You have to add 1 for the word Nodcha itself. Nodcha plus 1 is equal to Gnazav. Right? So I guess that's getting to Nodcha is that special place. Va'od kiba, kiba bays Gnazav in the house of Hashem's treasure house now, right? If you take the gematria of base Gnazav, so that would be so base Gnazav. So Gnazav we said 76, 476, 486, 486, and to 486, and bid base kanazov, 486 and 4 is 490, right? 490. Who got your tots, right? That's right. So that's gematria tough tzadi. Well, Shem Rishon Shel Shem Membeis, right? Which is the letters tots are encoded in the 42 lettered name of Ana. The Rosh is Ana Bekoach Gedulas Yemincha Tatir Tzrura. So the letters, tots are from the last two letters of the Aleph Beis Gimel Yud, right, which we don't say that name, all right, so in Kayadua, it's brought down that the tots of that first clause of the 42-letter name is connected to the kalim that broke. Tots. Tots also means to smash. It's connected with what broke in the world that needs fixing through our mitzvahs, fixing the shivrei kalim, right? Right, this is the dog gets excited when we talk Kabbalah. This first name this first name of the sequence of the Shem that comes out of the first letter of every of the Tfilas of Nechunim ben Akanya, I think it's called the Honor Bekoach. So so the last two letters of the first clause, tots, before the next clause is Kra Sutton, as we know. Right, Kra Sutton, right? But the tots of the first clause refers to the Shvira Sakelim, or in his words, Almad Kadmon, the first worlds that got destroyed. Now, of course, like we said, that these letters are, this word, first clause of the Shem Mem Beis has two parts. So there's the tots, which is the second part, which is connected the Olamas that were destroyed. Now, the first ones, like we said, it was Ana Bakoch Gedulas Yemincha, so it's Aleph Beis Gimel Yud. So that's 13, 15, 16. Gematria 16. Gematria Yud Vav 16. The second half is Tots, which refers refers to the Shvira. As Chosam Titotsun. Titotsun is smashed. That's what got smashed. So the tough tzadi refers to the smashing, right? And the the first few letters refer to what was smashed. So that's somebody could avgi, right? Aleph Beis, the Aleph of Honor, the Beis of Bekoch, and the Gimel of Gedulas, and the Yud of Yemincha. Kulam Nitzvah's world. Those are the worlds that were broken. Tats refers to the breaking, and the first four letters refer to what was broken. Shuz of Hashem, Tats, and that's the end of the name, is Tats. These are the Olam Sagor. So this is saying, keep it preserved. Now, when a tzaddik dies, it's actually it's actually a tikkun for the original killing of the kalim, right? Because smashing, they went down. Their smashing was an act of going down, right? The tzaddik dog is an act of him going up, and he pulls the kedusha with him, and things are restored. So I know, even though it sounds like, well, this is death and death, but it's not two different. The death of the Almas was going down. The death of tzaddik is to go up, and to raise up all that needs raising up, right? The opposite of the shvira, because even though they're both called death, but they're two opposite when we talk about the death of a tzaddik. For that tzaddik is an aliyah, right? Shomazab and aliyah, right? Whereas the shvira or the misa of the malachim kadmon, that's a yerida. So the misa of tzaddik is actually a big tikkun, and in the Mavar Yabok that inspired this word. There's much on that. Misa tzaddikim, and to die al kiddush Hashem is huge, and that's unfortunately when the world's very, very broken. That's why you need a lot of people to die al Kiddush Hashem, unfortunately. It happened on Simchas Torah. And Misas Tzadikim, especially die al Kiddush Hashem, is actually the reverse flow, things going bottom up, whereas the Misa was top down. The Misa, the original primordial Misa, the original Misa. It's set the potential for everything that could go wrong. The Murphy Misa. So percentage of anything that could go wrong. That sadly, if we choose wrongly, will go wrong. If we choose wrongly, you have to believe what's the sheker of Murphy's law is that will go wrong. No, only will go wrong if we're chote. But anything that could go wrong is emes. That's the shvira. And whether it will go wrong is it doesn't have to be that way. It's our fault. Will go wrong, and it probably seems true from human experience, because human experience is to always follow the Yetzer and do what your taivas want, and that's why it will go wrong. But it doesn't have to be. If you do Mechamas Yetzer, it doesn't have to go wrong, right? But the Misa Set Tzadikim and those who die of Kirish Hashem, it's the opposite flow. The original shvir is to push things down. They're going up, and they're dragging up with them everything that belongs up. Tell us my nukvim, raise the feminine waters. That's the aspect of the bria that needs raising up. That we do, but keep it sort of, and it also pulls, it's sort of the original shattering, fragmentation. With the Misa Tzaddik, he pulls things up, and with that, he pulls things into the proper configuration, the opposite of the original smashing. No, okay. Also, the hesped that we do for the tzaddikim. So also, the hesped, another benefit of the hesped, aside from to generate those tears, that those tears have to go to the right place, and when those tears go to the right place, they cause a sweetening of the dinim, like he described so beautifully, and how he showed Barumas in all the words. This piece was geschmack. I mean, all of his pieces of geschmack, but on my personal subjective level, I found this piece very geschmack. But the hesped also, right, is Soto Alos the Shamas Shukas Gan Eden is also secret is to elevate. There are some stolen souls or cheated souls. They fell into the wrong place. The Sitra Achra, got hopped onto them. When the tzaddik dies, we said he drags everything to its right place. He drags up. He's like the Pied Piper of leading everything in the right direction and causing realignment. So the neshamas that got stuck in the kochos hara, they cling to the tzaddik neshama that's rising, and they get saved. They get saved, and they also rise to heaven with him. They go to Gaim with him. And but of course, that's so that the koch of the hesped, right, that caused people to cry. It's not just, it doesn't just help the nifter himself, it helps all the neshamas ashukos, right? Because the crying that we do for this tzaddik that's going to heaven, right? That helps the process of pulling, that he should drag with him along the way all the lost souls, right? That are in limbo or captured by the Sitra Achra. He collects them with him and pulls them up to heaven. Right, so the more we cry by the hesped, the more of a tikkun it is, not just for the tzaddik that died, but for many other neshamas. Sofran, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is counting them, counting every tear. Why is it counting the tears? Why do they need a number? The most, right? Right? He counts those tears. Every tear is valuable. Now he's going to go deeper. Al Pi Kabbalah. V'noida, tears come from the eye, right? V'noida, shechor b'na'al min kadmo b'sod ha'ayin, kachan yiresh roseinu. The worlds that broke, the shvira was in the Eros ha'inayim, right? Without getting into, I'll just add, in honor of the Yortzeit, of Daniel ben David, I'll add a few words of Hesper. Right, that if you take a look in all our tefillos, we say may we see right? Ve'inenu sirena malchusecha, all ki ayin bayin yiru b'shuv Hashem Tzion v'ro kol basar, all the things about we should see Mashiach, see. Why see? Right? Let's hear good news. Right? So, because what's really broken about the world is the way the world looks. Because the appearance is deceiving. It looks like God is not in control. It looks like God abandoned the world. Now we could hear philosophically, right? Yeah. We can hear philosophically, like, no, it's all for the good and Hashem Melech. And it's true, but we only hear it. Right? We don't see it. And that's what's broken in the world. The world's still broken because as long as it's just about hearing and philosophy, and you're going to have to believe, but seeing is the best believing. Seeing doesn't need proof. So that's what's broken in the world, the way it looks, the appearances that could be deceiving, right? Right, and even, footage, but footage is proof. No, it's not. Because, the CNN and Newsmax could both be using the same footage. Each one puts a different spin on it. It's not readily apparent what the emes is. Right, so that's what the big tikkun is, and that's what it means. The world, the visible world, which is what needs tikkun, and what's broken about the visible world is exactly the way it looks. So those worlds were created by the Oros Ha'inayim of Adam Kadmon, Oros Ha'inayim. Without getting into, it was a certain koch that's called Oros Ha'inayim, the light of the eyes, right? Because it's the visible world. And what's most broken about it is the way it looks. Right? So the Oros Einayim is what's broken. So the tikkun is the most that come out of the Einayim. It's ayin fixing ayin, right? That's he brings this. The Rav Chaim Vital brings this possible. Open your eyes and see how we are desolate, right? Right? It's because it's the eyes that need fixing. The desolation is in the eyes, and that's open the eyes. And we have to enhance the Oros Ha'inayim that it should become optimal again. And that's the tikkun that we have to make. That's why we have to be or l'goyim, a light onto nations, visible. That's the tikkun we have to make, right? But now also here, this tikkun is made, but there's the tears in the eyes. The eyes are what need fixing. And that's the secret of ayin hora, the einayim is the einayim and the way things appear is what needs tikkun, because we have to have v'ha'er einenu b'sarasecha, right? We need to increase light of the eyes, right? Increase the light. V'ha'einenu b'sarasecha, right? We need gal einai. We have to open the eyes more. The eyes are what broke because they're deficient. They have to be optimized, right? Right? Okay, there's a lot of this in Rav Chaim Vital, remember, in the old, in the Eitz Chaim, in the Otzos Chaim, where he talks about the Shvira. Those are Dorbito Mato, basically saying, V'chorban Olamo, Shatzak Yisom, Shatzak Ol Yisod Om, the Kosh 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 Shalikim, Daka Mipnei Nozim Ayin, right? Right. That so just the opposite, if you want to talk about from a destruction perspective, because we said it's all relative, for us losing the tzaddik is a big churban. It's like shviras hakelim. Now that if Beis Mikdash was a big shvira, which reminiscent of shviras hakelim, the mitzvah is all shakol tzveifas beis hakelim. The mitzvah was even worse than churban Beis Mikdash. But that's from our perspective. For the tzaddik himself, it's good, and we say there's a hidden chesed that a new tzaddik was born. But from our perspective, from where we're standing, it's the world has been broken. And even to a certain extent, you could say he was a tzaddik who was Yesoda Olam. He's the pillar that holds the world up, and he was removed. So it's like the world's coming crashing down. It's like another Shviras Hakelim, another Shviras Almin. It is reminiscent of Shviras Almin de Kadmoin, right? The original worlds that broke. That's from our perspective. Now we know in the depth of it, in behind the scenes, it was actually a tikkun, to reverse the shvira. But on the apparent level, it's a shvira, and therefore on the apparent level, we have to countermeasure. The apparent, the way it looks, it's like a shvira. We got to have tears in the eyes. Tears in the eyes. The Oros Ha'inayim on the apparent level looks like a big shvira. Apparent ayin Oros Ha'inayim. We have to cleanse it with tears. Cleanse it with tears. Cleanse it with tears. And that's a countermeasure, right? Right. V'chein pirush ha'makubal al-ki Rav David Pinchi zatzah. This also the makubal al-ki Rav David Pinchi. It's very harsh. I think Rav David Pinchi was the Ramchal's father-in-law. He lived roughly in the time of the Ramchal, a little bit later. But yeah, he and the Ramchal were alive at the same time. Right, so the Makul Kid of David Pinchi, who I believe was the Ramchal's father-in-law. So he also explained binyan acher, and regarding something else, he had mentioned he had mentioned this idea of crying when the tzaddikim die, because it's like churban ha'olam, and churban is in oros ha'einayim, and so you have to countermeasures to cry and cleanse the eyes. The eyes that need tikkun get cleansed with the tears. It's a countermeasure to the churban that's in the oros ha'einayim. No, so but Pinchy said it, in a different regarding different psukim, but this was the same yesod that he said, right? So now again, going back to the pasuk till sima dim asim, now to put my tear in your jug. Vayud, so the yud of dim asi joins the aleph. Vayud ala nod, you take dim asi, my dima yud, the tears that are connected to the letter yud is what we're interested in, what we want you to hold on to. The tears that are, think about it, every tear looks like a little yud, right? But the tears that are connected to yud, there are the tears that are cleansing, that are a countermeasure to the din, right? So those, so the tears are connected to the ois yud, put in your node. It's spelled with an aleph, noun aleph dalid. Put in nodcha. Vayud al notes, now you have the yud on top of node. Shem osir shal, and it'll make adnus, where the dinim are very much mitigated and subdued. Because even though we said it's a 2-on-2 fight, but still, the letters of Rachamim have the advantage because they're surround and sandwich in. They surround, like the Israelis are surrounding Gaza City, and they should, sort of Yidden are connected to the Alpha Yud, surrounding Gaza City, that should be done. Anochi, Akosha should be done them with no racham whatever, just done. Daled Nun, and then we'll be done with them. Bimherab Yamenu, and all the Shans Tzadikim and the Shema of Daniel ben David shall have been Aliyah. And we should see be Yeshuas Yisrael, Tekef Umiyad, Yeshuas Hashem Karafai.